I'm talking about the word cisgender.
Can you all please stop trying to transplain to us why we're supposed to start going by cisgender and just understand that if people don't want something, they just don't want it?
Don't know what the word cisgender means? That means you probably are cisgender.
He's unbothered.
What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. So here's the deal. Transgender activists really have gotten out of control. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to comment just to help the algorithm, just go ahead and put a knife because you know they're definitely coming after my neck on this one. First off, I think distinctions are important. There is a difference between the people that you're seeing that are stirring up all the problems, which would be transgender and transgender activists, and transsexual people. Transsexual people are usually just trying to go from male to female or female to male. Usually transsexual people just want to blend. They just want to be what they feel they were born to be. They're not trying to overtake anybody's position. They're not trying to explain to you what it is you're now supposed to be. So for that reason, I think it's very important to make the distinction. I know that transgender activist types will jump in the comments and they'll be like, transsexual isn't accurate anymore because we now know blah, blah, blah. Okay, you're transplaining again. I know how it works, and I really feel like the only reason that transgender people really want to make sure that there's no distinction between them and transsexuals is because transsexual people inadvertently legitimize them, because a lot of people are sympathetic to that. So if you were to take that away from the transgender activist, you'd be left with the people that we're all sort of like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I don't want to be a part of it. You do that. I'm not going to encourage it. So now that I've said that, let me say I ended up in trouble on TikTok simply because I had mentioned at a point that I saw why it was some women were insulted by Dylan Mulvaney. I think high visibility trans women like Dylan Mulvaney actually do the trans movement a disservice because they make it seem almost as if they're telling real women what it is to be a woman. And most well-adjusted trans women, so I'm talking trans women that have been living in their truth for years now, realize and are not at all offended by the fact that they are something different from a natural woman or a cis woman, as they would put it. So I really feel like people like Dylan Mulvaney that have been trans for just over a year now should kind of step aside and get themselves settled before they start presenting themselves as what trans is, because they're really not. And a bunch of transgender activists got mad at me because I used the term real women, which to them implies that I think trans women are fake women, which I never said that. That's just what they took from me using the term real women. Ironically enough, the reason I used the term real women was because when I was younger, because I've had trans friends for 30 years, we would refer to trans women as being trans women and real women as being real women. So even though everybody was mad at me, I got that terminology from hanging out with trans women. So I don't know why anybody would be offended, but they were offended. So I made another video and I was like, no well-adjusted trans woman would ever have a problem with me using the term real woman. However, the overwhelming majority of real women that I know, not only online but in real life, have expressed to me that they don't like the term cisgender. So I'm not going to call real women cisgender women when they don't like being called cisgender women, just like I'm not going to call trans women anything they prefer not to be called. I have to respect both sides, and you can't spend all of your time telling me, listen to women, and then not listening to women when they express the terms that they want to be referred to in. So this is just about me respecting real women and respecting trans women at the same time. And if you don't like that, that's just going to be your problem. There will be no correction or retraction on my part for the terms that I use. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch my stuff. The women that I'm closest to in my life, which there are many, I have a mother. I only have sisters. My best friend is a woman. So the women that I know prefer not be referred to as cisgender women. They've told me that they don't like it. And so I don't feel like it's my job to mansplain to them why it is they should go by cisgender. I don't even have a problem with the fact that they don't go by the term cisgender. I don't question that they don't want to go by cisgender, just like I don't question that trans people don't want to go by their biological sex. Equal respect, both sides from me. I just take it as, you don't like being told that? You don't like being told that? I won't say either of them. But I said this, and then a bunch of trans people jumped in the comments and told me the meaning of cisgender. And
okay, I didn't want to have this argument in your comments, baby, okay? But since you said I didn't know my history, I decided to go ahead and stitch your video and just give you some facts. The prefix cis comes from the Latin meaning on.
In Latin, it means on the side of, and it's been used forever. And I was like, no, I'm very clear about that. I know where it comes from. People don't get it. I'm very well educated on this because I have been in the community and hanging out with trans people for the last 30 years. So it's not like I'm at all uneducated on this. I know where it comes from. I know why it's used. I know that it was coined in 1994, and it was so that trans people wouldn't feel marginalized or other when we were referring to biological men and women, but it didn't get put in the dictionary and people didn't start really using it till 2015. This is all fact. So biological people, a lot of them have said that they don't want to be referred to as cisgender. So people took that as me saying that I thought the term cisgender was offensive. And then a whole nother group of people that were from the same camp jumped in and started calling me sissy, spelling it like cisgender. It was meant to be insulting to me, but like I said, I don't care. But they were just trying to offend me. So they kept, okay, sissy, cool, sissy. If you don't like being called sissy, then I guess I'll just keep calling you sissy. And this is what gets on my nerves about that. I'm not at all sensitive to it. I don't even care about it. But say I had. Why is it you can't respect me the same way that you're constantly demanding that people respect you? Because the argument for not coming off the cisgender thing is, I'm not gonna not call you cisgender because it's just what you are. Well, why is it that's okay? But then if a person says to them, I'm not gonna refer to you as anything but your sex at birth because that's what you are, suddenly that's hate speech. Why is it that you have to be referred to the way that you want to be referred to, but then when somebody says they don't want to be referred to a particular way, you can't respect them, but they're supposed to completely respect you? In what world is that ever going to work? Then we get to the fact that when it comes to cisgender specifically, like I said, for me, it's women in my life. So how is it we can say that we're supposed to listen to women, that we're supposed to respect women, but then as soon as a man identifies as a woman, suddenly he's able to tell women what it is they're supposed to think, how it is they're supposed to identify, and what it is they're supposed to be comfortable with? I don't understand how it is we can say both of these things and sincerely mean them. And so then at a point, even though I feel like trans activists are messing it up for my transsexual friends, because I know and I see that women will not only get shouted down, but people will come after them professionally and personally if they say these things, then I feel like with me being a person that suffers no consequence for saying any of this, that it's my job to stand up for women. It's my job to jump in and say, no, you don't get to just push these women around and tell them that this is the way that they're going to think and this is what they're going to do. And I have noticed, because I'm surrounded by a lot of women of color, that women of color in particular don't like the term cisgender. And I see a lot of white women, and I'm not generalizing and saying all white women are a problem, nothing like that. I'm not coming after you white women, but I'm just saying that I do notice there are a fair amount of white women that love to jump in the comments and be like, I'm a cishet woman, which stands for cisgender heterosexual woman, and I don't have a problem with being referred to as cisgender, and any woman that does is clearly transphobic, and F her. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know why it is being a woman is important to the women watching this video specifically. So if you want to put that in the comments and let me know, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure there's a million different answers, just like there's a million different women. There's more than a million different women, but you know what I'm saying. But I would imagine that when it comes to women of color specifically, part of it has to be that they even had to fight to be respected as women, even with other women. Because if you know anything about the suffrage movement, when women wanted the right to vote, black women specifically were asked not to march with the white women because the white women didn't want it to be confused with having anything to do with black people. They wanted to be very clear that this was about women. And by their definition, during those times, black women weren't included in just women. So I would imagine that there is a bit of that comes into play with women of color and why they're like, no, I fought this long to just be recognized as a woman. So at this point, I'm not going to take some secondary title because what is otherwise just a biological man now identifies as a woman and doesn't feel comfortable enough with themselves to just say, you are a woman and I am a trans woman. And some people don't want to be a different version of what they've always been. Some people don't even buy into the fact that there are different versions of what it is they are. Some people really are of the thinking that there's men and there's women. I personally am fine with people playing on the spectrum and doing whatever they want. For me, that's not a thing. But there are some people that are very firmly set in there is this and there's that, and there's not any in between, and there's not any switching. So you're now not only asking those people to accept what it is you are, but to also now buy in to the point where they have to change the way that they talk about themselves. And that's going to be a tough sell because some people just do not buy in that way. And they're being very clear about the fact that they're not going to humor that. And then there are some people that feel like I shouldn't have to play along with the delusion of it. It's okay if you want to identify as something. But as soon as you start trying to tell me that not only do I identify as this is what I am, and this is what you have to accept that I am, some people are like, no, that's where now you're trying to force me to think the way that you think when I know that biologically that's not a fact. And most of us have been, to this point, willing to say, okay, you can be your version of this, and we will refer to you as that. But now, the trans activists have said that's not good enough. Instead, they're like, no, there has to be an opposite to a trans woman. There is an opposite to a trans woman. There's a trans woman, and there's a woman. Sort of like when you order a Coke. If I order a Coke, nobody's going to ask me, did you mean a Diet Coke? No. I just ordered a Coke. Everybody knows that means I just want a Coke. If I wanted a Diet Coke, I would order a Diet Coke. I guess that's a good analogy because if you know anything about Coke, their slogan was, it's a real thing. And it's what it is. There is a real thing and there's a thing that has chosen to transition into being a version of the real thing. But now, the trans activists, they're like, we want to identify this way, and you have to identify as this other thing now, because that's what we're comfortable with you saying. Well, not everything has to be approved by you, and that's what you're not understanding. No other group, minority group, or otherwise, has been able to completely control the narrative and police the language of the rest of the population. That's just not ever been a thing. But now, suddenly, with trans activists, you think that that's for some reason is going to change and be like this for you. Well, that's not the way that this is going to work. So it's probably better for you to just accept that and understand that you need to be more comfortable with yourself, and then you don't have to worry as much about what the rest of us are saying. Because when I said that about respecting both sides, women were in the comments saying, I don't have a problem with trans women. I don't have a problem with trans women identifying as trans women. But there were a bunch of trans activists in my comments telling me that I should not refer to women as real women, or even there were people that were mad about the term biological women. There were no other options other than me just saying cisgender women, which I was very clear that I wasn't going to say. And then it turned into I must be homophobic because I won't say what it is they want. Well, that's not the way any of this works. And that's what you're not getting, is you're not going to bully all of us into speaking exactly the way that you want us to speak and always using the exact words that you want us to use. And then you have some trans women, like I have one friend, I haven't talked to her in a while now, but she was going through a transition and a lot of us were supportive. And all of a sudden one day she posted that she didn't want to be referred to as a trans woman, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just like, okay, well then you want to be referred to as a woman, then you want to be referred to as a woman. And then I was like, oh yeah, well then at that point, what would a woman be? And then she was like, a cisgender woman. Oh, so you now get to just take over the title of being a woman, and now biological women have to be cisgender women. Well, I hate to tell you, but I don't think that women are going to let you play them out of their position that way. And you can call that transphobic if you want to, but I don't think the rest of us are going to go along with that. And I think that the word transphobic has really been overused to the point where the rest of us see that it's just what you call it whenever somebody says something that you don't agree with. It's not about actual hate. It's not about an actual phobia. It really just is a weapon you use when you're not getting your way. So don't be surprised when in the very near future, people altogether stop reacting to the term transphobic, where it just gets to a point where we're like, okay, well then call me transphobic. I'm still going to say what I say, and you can call it anything you want to. And everybody's just going to be like, yeah, let me look at what they said. And then they're going to look and they're going to be like, that's not transphobic. They're just not submitting to what it is you want exactly. Oh, and I'll also let you in on a little bit of terminology that's coming down the pike. There is terminology that a lot of people have started to use where they refer to trans men as trans identifying females. So that's respecting the fact that they are born female, but they identify as trans. So respecting the transness, respecting the sex assigned at birth. So trans identifying female would be a trans man. Trans identifying male would be a trans woman. So a person that was born a man now identifies as a woman. Those are the two terms that people are starting to use because there are certain parts of the population that have gotten to the point where they're like, if you're not going to respect what I want at all, I'm no longer going to refer to you as what it is you would prefer to be referred to as, and I'm just going to refer to you as what you technically are, which would be a trans identifying female or male, depending on what you were born. And that's the answer to when trans activists say, I'm just calling you cisgender and sissy because you are a cisgender and sissy. So when the cisgender community comes at you and says, okay, continue to call me cisgender and sissy, I'm just going to refer to you as a trans identifying female or a trans identifying male. You are no longer a trans man to me. You are no longer a trans woman to me. The words man and woman don't come into play. I only have to show you the minimal amount of human decency and respect in order to conduct whatever social transaction that we may encounter. Outside of that, you take it or leave it. Really, it's gotten to the point where people are just fed up. And so they're like, I'm not doing any of it with you anymore. And unfortunately, transsexuals are going to have to deal with what trans activists have brought on for them. And even after everything I've said in this video, I know some people are still going to refer to what it is I'm saying and what it is I'm expressing as hate. But really, this is me being as honest as I possibly can with trans activists and saying, this is how you're losing favor. This is how you're losing rights. This is how you're messing it up for a lot of transsexual people that don't want to be involved in any of this. So in the future, when you talk about losing rights and all the different things that you say are happening, understand that right now you are the biggest factor in your own undoing. You are in your way more than any other group that you're trying to blame it on. You are a bigger factor than them. And I am really just trying to say, please don't do this to people I love. Time to stop being selfish. If you love the community as much as you say, it's time to start making some compromises. It's time to start seeing things from other people's perspective and not just your own selfish, childish ways. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let me know what you think about cisgender. Let me know why it's important to you to identify however you want to identify. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.